Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended clip.
You should just let go, like Stacy Keach in the movie that we're going to talk about today.
That's so true. Today we are talking about a film about down and out losers, so why don't I just become one? You know, sometimes life is just about taking the L, and that's what we're doing today. It's Extended Clip. It's episode 397. I am one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And we are continuing our month-long series on the changing of the tides in Hollywood in the 60s and 70s. We are talking about the old heads from the classical Hollywood system, the studio system, making their last grasps at the cinema, either through stubbornness or, going along with the experimental trends of the day, a la Nicholas Ray. And we are also talking about the new Hollywood icons that changed everything. Today's episode is going to be in the former category. We are talking about a 1972 film by Hollywood legend John Huston, Fat City, based on the novel of the same name by Leonard Gardner, and Leonard Gardner also adapted his own novel for the script here. This is a boxing drama, as I said, very raggedy, down and out boxing drama about taking the L. Stacy Keach is someone who's already been through the ringer as a boxer, and he is only 29 years old, and he's a total washout burnout who now just drinks away his sorrows. You have Jeff Bridges as a hotshot, confident 18-year-old kid. You have Coach from Cheers as a boxing coach. And it's just like such a great and kind of like, I want to say subtle drama, because yeah, sure, the themes are very pronounced, but I think a much hackier version of this story would exist where the two leads fight at the end, basically.
Yeah, true.
Like any other boxing movie in the Hollywood system would lead up to the two guys having a big fight at the end, even past classic Hollywood, that would be like the Rocky version of this, but instead we just see one man's life going on an upward trajectory and the other heading downward. But even with Jeff Bridges' upward trajectory, we just see him getting his lights punched out and just like marrying a girl because he got her pregnant when they were 18 and 17 or whatever, and just kind of going along with the ride, and washes out of boxing pretty quick and ends up back in the labor fields where Stacy Keach is hanging out picking walnuts,
Yeah.
And it takes place in Stockton, California, which that's a pretty I don't want to say low class city for any of our
it's
Stockton listeners, but in terms of class, yes, it is a very poor city up until Detroit's absolute collapse in 2013, I believe. Stockton was the largest city to ever declare bankruptcy,
Wow.
And this is a former, factory town that kind of washed out like so many American towns did post-industrialization, when jobs are going elsewhere and things are just starting to slow down in the old towns. And this movie is just a really great portrait of desperation and desolation in America, and the people who keep fighting through it to their death, even if there's seemingly no purpose. Whether you're a boxing coach who is barely scraping by with 4 kids, having to rely on these drunk washouts just to make a couple bucks on a promotion, or you're one of those drunk washouts, or you're a woman who, hangs out at a bar because she's hopelessly addicted to alcohol and looking for someone to pull her out of a rut, but no one cares enough, This is a deeply sad movie, and I really loved it.
Yeah, no, I was a big fan too. With Houston, I feel like, I feel like I haven't seen a lot of his major works. We direct like The Maltese Falcon, right? Yeah.
And he was writing a lot in the early 30s. Huston has one of the craziest Hollywood careers. I mean, I always just kind of assumed it was a nepotism thing because his dad, Walter Huston, was a big star, like coming into the early talkie era. But since he's an old man, I figured like, okay, he was an old time silent star and his son was just ushered in. But his dad only got into the business a couple of years before him. His dad was like a vaudeville guy who would just take him on tour with him as a little kid because his parents got divorced early on. And so he was just like doing his own thing. He was pretty much a drifter, doing all sorts of stuff, dropped out of high school to be a boxer and was like a very a top ranked California amateur boxer as a 15-year-old, and then went to, study painting and lived in Europe for a little bit. And then once the talkies come along, comes to Hollywood to become a screenwriter in the same industry that employs his father. And, within a decade surpasses him in stature. But he also has this like lost period in the mid 30s where he had some like pretty tragic stuff go down. Like I was talking last week about Nick Ray's Demons. I feel like every classic Hollywood guy has one insane story that seems too pulpy to even be a pulp movie. Like Nick Ray getting cucked by his son. This one, it's like he vehicular manslaughtered a famous actress, and there's a huge conspiracy that it was actually Clark Gable, and MGM had their fixer set it up to where John Huston, just some lowly screenwriter, could take the rap for it, and went through a divorce as well, and just washed out, and like I think went back to Europe for a while and didn't come back to Hollywood until like 38, 39, and just right before World War II kicks off, which obviously shapes his career in such a large way. But yeah, this is just like, he's a guy who knows what it's like to be down and out. He would just like hole up and drink in Mexico for like years at a time, I mentioned Desolation earlier, evoking the last song from Highway 61, but the one before it, the opening line of Tom Thumb, "When you're lost in the rain in Juarez," that's what I'm imagining John Huston's life to be like in between movies, is just like in some cantina getting shit-faced, figuring out what the next move is,
Yeah, people complain like, movies aren't as good nowadays. We need to let directors, shoot elephants, much to Clint Eastwood's chagrin, you know what I mean? But like, let him
fucking woke Clint Eastwood.
Woke Clint Eastwood. Yeah, I refused to watch his movies because I watched White Hunter, Black Heart, and I was just like, that's just, he's wielding his power irresponsibly. Yeah. I can't condone that. But, with the Nick Ray story and like all the lives Huston lived, maybe that's why their movies translate. They lived some of that real life pain, had some real life experiences. And just, Huston, I've seen him a lot too, because he's such a big historical figure. And, he's done some acting too, you know what I mean? Some great acting. And you could just kind of tell, especially, I feel like I'm more familiar with him as like an older man. You could feel the weight that he kind of carries with him, and I mean that type of weight is all over this movie, Fat City. And like, you were talking about how in lesser hands this could kind of feel, a little bit more like kind of heightened or kind of just like melodramatic in a way that wouldn't feel authentic to the material, but it has a lot of hopelessness and sad people, but the context in which it presents it all makes sense, and it all feels realistic, and there's just always a lot of room for like kind of sad silence and for people to brood to really sell those points. And knowing a little bit more about his biography there, it's all connecting for me. It's all connecting.
JT, had you seen this one before?
No, I had not. I don't have all that like a strong familiarity with like Huston's filmography. I mean, obviously he's just one of those old Hollywood guys who I feel like pops up everywhere, whether it be like screenwriter, in performances, like acting. He's just kind of all over the place. And I feel like this film is interesting And his career in general is interesting in regards to like what we've been talking about with like old Hollywood guys who are like surviving into the like new Hollywood era. Houston feels like he weathered the storm probably like the best of any of them. I mean, whether or not that be like just, I don't know, him being a little bit more with it in old age. But like after Fat City, he has like I think 12 other features, and not like other features like I don't know where it's just like, I mean like Hawks had like something of like a late career, but there's like I don't know. You want to say laziness, but it's just like you feel a lighter touch, to be a little bit more polite about senility. But Houston, I think, like after this, like he made the Flannery O'Connor Wise Blood adaptation that I've seen before. He did like Annie, which is a pretty, I mean, obviously a big musical. I haven't really seen it, but like The Man Who Would Be King, there are some like pretty big movies like there towards the latter half of his filmography, and he seems to have weathered the storm the best, like of being able to make movies in the new system, and also I think like have them like, I don't want to say necessarily like feel like newer style, but like I think there's an adaptability there that like some of these other old heads we've been talking about just don't have. And yeah, I don't know. I think like with Fat City, it really comes across like his ability, like I guess kind of what the both of you have been saying, like the truth to that sort of like dirty, dingy, like loser material. I think Houston works really well in that mode. Like there are so many like shirts that Stacy Keach wears in this that look like it's like been like 3 weeks since he's like taken that to the cleaners. Like it's like there's no laundry. Like you can't even run that under the sink, man. Like it's like that white shirt is turning gray. There's like a tactile feel to how like kind of gross and kind of pathetic this movie feels. And I really enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's some classic, like, 70s grossness in this movie between all of the sweat and, people sweating through shirts and just wearing dirty clothes in general to the food. I mean, it's some of the most, like, 70s eating ever, where at one point Stacy Keach, for his new girlfriend, Oma, makes the nastiest steaks ever. Where, the classic, just with a fork, throw it on the grill, flip it over once, but they were just charcoal black, and you could tell the pan he cooked it in, it's probably gross too.
He didn't even cook the peas. He just opens the peas from the can and puts them on the plate.
And they're spilling all over the place, and there's ketchup all over the place, and he has to drown the steak in ketchup to eat it anyway, and he's still getting pissed at her for not eating because it's just this insane domestic breaking point for him, of a scene. But it's such a great scene to demonstrate just the griminess of this movie. And I don't know, speaking of classic 70s movies things, like people just look so fucking old back then. It's hilarious. I mean, it is the most classic 1970s movie version of a 29-year-old in Stacy Keach. Like, how am I older than Stacy Keach's character in this? It makes me feel really good about my sense of youth. I feel like I look 18 compared to him.
Yeah, definitely. It is on the food stuff. Like, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like people just care more about like kind of like nowadays everyone's got like a cast iron to cook the steak in, and like they're looking up recipes, but if you're like Stacy Keach getting drunk all day, you don't got the internet to look up a recipe. You're like, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking burn the fuck out of this steak, make sure it's done, and then just have some ketchup with it, you know what I mean? I feel like there's like probably some modern day alcoholics being like, well, at least I cook myself some good meals, like I have my stuff together. Whereas back then it's just like, You know, I don't know. There's levels to everything, but it's just like I like to imagine 70s guys being like, I don't give a fuck about my food. Just cook, you know, serve it to me on a plate and I'll eat it.
Yeah,
know?
now you could just pretend you're Anthony Bourdain and you're like, oh, I'm drunk, but it's because I just love food so much.
Exactly.
Couldn't do that back then. If you liked food that much back then, you were just fat. You know, like there were no gourmands in the 70s. There were just guys who ate really sloppily, you know. At home, you should look up, I think it was on Conan once, Nick Kroll going on there talking about, he did a character of 70s eating guy, and he was just like eating spaghetti and getting it all over his face and talking while shoveling the food into his mouth. And it was a great encapsulation of, for some reason, like the realistic kind of gritty 70s new Hollywood era movies. People just wanted to stuff their faces like really sloppily for some reason.
It's all sustenance, you know what I mean? I just got to get it in fast.
I really like how this movie starts out taking its time too, because it's only 90 minutes, but it's not exactly like a breakneck paced movie or anything like that. It's actually very like, you know, slow and ambling kind of, not made up of all that many scenes, but the scenes go on for quite a while. But you have kind of two intros here. One is a very quick dissolving montage of just like the faces of Stockton, you know, and apparently this was shot like 10 years before the movie because Stockton looked a lot different at this point, but they wanted to like evoke what Stockton looked like when Gardner was writing Fat City, you know. But yeah, all those people just dissolved together to kind of create the atmosphere of a city for the viewer who definitely has not been there, you know? And then you get like a classic opening credits thing with the Chris Christopherson song that bookends this movie and, you know, starts off as a nice tone setter and becomes heartbreaking when it comes back toward the end, you know?
There's just a real like slow quality to the intro, like you said. And like, I love when he gets to the boxing gym too, or the YMCA, because, you know, Stacy Keach has been avoiding the boxing gym. He's kind of, you know, doesn't want to see, you know, he doesn't want to give a bad practice performance, you know. People, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking well right now. But yeah, Keach is avoiding, you know, his old boxing gym. And you just kind of get the sounds of, you know, kind of like training. You get like the jump rope with the punching of the boxing bag. And you could kind of tell like they're kind of like eyeing each other up a little bit, kind of sizing each other up, you know, just, you know, who's this new guy in the gym. And that's where their relationship starts. But, you know, we're talking about how Keach looks old. And Bridges looks super young in comparison, and I think he probably is really young. You know, I don't think that's
it's early.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Early
CGI
Bridges.
or anything like that. But yeah, especially compared to everyone else in this movie, and just how we know Jeff Bridges too. Just, you know, knowing him throughout his career, knowing him as an older guy. This is definitely the youngest I've seen him. I haven't seen the Last Picture Show.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep, you know, I know people think I know everything, right? But that's one I haven't seen. But yeah, just
don't worry, I'll edit that out of the podcast.
Yeah,
so
that would
no
be
one
pretty
knows.
fucking embarrassing. They might be unsubscribing right now. But yeah, just it's the contrast between the two guys, you know, in many qualities is one of the great aspects of the movie. But it's apparent right away in the looks.
Yeah, I mean, they meet up in the first actual scene of the movie is them meeting up at the Y, and you know, it's a very classical setup of just a washed old head taking a young guy under his wing and being like, "Look, I'll show you a couple things," you know. But before he can even show him anything, we just find our old buddy Stacy Keach back at the bar, where it's very obvious that that's just where he spends his time, and you know, once in a while entertaining the thoughts of a local loudmouth girl named Oma, who's there with her boyfriend all the time. And you know, obviously their relationship develops throughout this movie and becomes very heartbreaking. She's kind of reminiscent of Shirley MacLaine in performance style in general, but this character in particular, I think her name is Ginny in Some Came Running, MacLaine in that movie, very reminiscent of that, of just like, you know, a very good-hearted girl who kind of falls through the cracks and ends up just like a down and out party girl, but not in a glamorous way at all, you know?
Yeah. No, those bar scenes are just they're really just tragic too, because it is just like there's a lot of it's like during the day, like you see like the kind of like the pale sunlight contrast with like the dark bar rooms, and it is sad, but there's also like with Keach kind of developing a relationship with her, there's almost like you could feel the hope he has, you know, looking from the outside, you know, two people getting drunk in the middle of the afternoon, you know, it's you know, that's like not great, but like you could just see kind of like him kind of build himself, feel a little more like confident, have a little bit more charisma when he talks to her more, and her just, you know, just kind of being like not completely with it too. It is just it's like, you know, when they walk out of that scene where they walk out of the bar in the afternoon and kind of Keach keeps repeating something. What does he keep repeating? Like,
you can count on me.
You can count on me. You could count on me. And like the way their discussion's going, it seems like, oh, maybe they're gonna go home to like hook up or whatever. But then when they both walk out the bar, like she's just way too, you know, messed up. But there's almost like a weird optimism in seeing the sunlight, but it's just contrasted with their actual conditions. It just it revs up a lot of emotions.
What you're talking about with the optimism there that Keach's character has, in sort of dreaming of that relationship, I think it's something that's like true to most of the characters here. Obviously, they're all like really down and out, and like, again, even someone who is the most on the rise, like Jeff Bridges, is still like, I don't know, on the rise in like amateur boxing circuits that like will probably lead him exactly where Keach is at right now. But like none of the characters I feel like are too like, save for like, and I mean, I feel like that's why it makes like the end scene all that more like powerful, because it's like the depression and just misery of like people living everyday shitty lives. They're not really like brooding over it. Like some of them have like made their peace and are just like, oh, well, I'm going to get fucked up in the middle of the day. I'm just going to do that sort of shit. And like, I don't know. I feel like they're not like actively sad as individuals all that much. They're doing their best to sort of trudge through their miserable lives, which I think just like, I don't know, it makes it more sad because you can see how these people have sort of made their peace with their lot in life. And
yeah,
like,
I think.
Sorry, go with what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's like half of the people in this movie are choosing to struggle through whatever they can and lead pretty depressing lives that every day is a struggle. And the rest of them have just resigned to misery, basically. And it's about whether or not you're going to give up, even if like everything else is gonna suck anyway. you know, and it's really tough. I mean, this whole town is like that, you know. It's 1972, but there's no remnants of a counterculture era or like hippies running around or anything like that. These people are too fucking depressed to care about cultural issues. They just want like a gig to get them some money, you know, and to get out of the rut they're in. And like everyone drives like a shitty beat up car. You know, there's a great scene early on where, you know, one of the groups of people who are trying to push through, the guys who hang out at the boxing gym, whether it's the coach or his kind of assistant guy, Ray, they're all like loading in the car to go to an event, and Ray can't close the trunk that they leave open for him. And then you realize that this is just, at this point, documentary footage of an actor not being able to close the trunk of a shitty car, and he just looks at the camera and throws his hands up and then it cuts to the next scene. And I think the fact that that little bit is included in the film and not tossed away as an outtake really says a lot about like, this film was probably a struggle to make too, just like these characters are struggling. You know, this is like a low budget movie, despite the fact that it was very well acclaimed. It's like they had to use pretty low rate stars for it, you know, like Stacy Keach was pretty much unknown at this point, and Bridges isn't exactly the biggest box office draw in the world in 72. I read that the initial conception of this by Huston had Marlon Brando in the Stacy Keach role, which just that would have made it like a melodrama. It would have made it a different movie, especially 70s Brando. Like, I don't know what he thought he was getting into there.
Talk about Fat City,
I was
right?
gonna
I was gonna
yeah.
say, there's no way Brando could pretend to be in fighting shape. Like, that's just
Well, the heavyweights, you know?
yeah, he's a heavyweight.
Do fat people not have a boxing league? Is there not like a morbidly obese
That's true.
boxing league? I mean, I don't think there is, to be honest. Or maybe there is. I don't know.
Maybe there is.
Well, it is interesting because, also, you know, I am familiar with Keach, but obviously, like someone like Brando, you have way more baggage with. I know this would be like around Godfather time or pre-Godfather, so you don't have that quite baggage yet. But like, I mean, I feel like Keach is the perfect man for this role, and just like as you commented on, like, looks much older than 29, and like you could just really feel the weathering on his face. And I feel like, if you go with like Elvis or Frank Sinatra to play that lead, like it's just not gonna hit as well. And it matches with like the authenticity of the on location shooting, in a not so glamorous place like Stockton. And I don't know, I feel like that, kind of the relatively unknown actors at the time, but even more so with like Keach in the lead, compared with the setting, like it is a perfect, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't recast.
I love that you brought up Elvis here, because that is a thread through this movie, is the coach played by Nicholas Colasanto, aka Coach from Cheers, Coach Rubin in this movie. He is like really excited that Jeff Bridges is white and sees so much like marketing potential in that. And he's like, I'll put the clip here, but he says at one point to his wife, like very, defeatedly, he's like, look, I got nothing against colored fighters, but it's not going to sell tickets. I got to get a white fighter. This guy can really do something to me. High class people come see this guy fight. And then at one point, Jeff Bridges even buys a robe that is like very late period Elvis coded. The white robe with like the gold highlights all over it is just very funny. But I feel like this is already doing Elvis meta commentary at a time where I guess people were probably doing it because that comeback special was in 68, but it just feels very like, I don't know, it feels like very smart filmmaking to kind of have this if not a fully running joke, then an aspect of the movie of the Elvisization of just like a manager seeing an opportunity for a white person to participate in something that is famously black as like a huge marketing thing, because of course all the great boxers, at this point in time especially, were black. So he just sees dollar signs, just like the Colonel in Elvis when Tom Hanks was doing the mugging.
I mean, if one thing, that scene will live on, that scene from Elvis. I mean, that's a great scene where him and the Jeff Bridges and the boxing coach go shopping, a little.
Kind of reminded me of Boogie Nights, like Dirk Diggler getting all his like Japanese stuff in his bedroom and like all his new clothes, like his crocodile skin shoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like Jeff Bridges is like come up in this movie. It's very like lightly documented, you know what I mean? It doesn't go into it too much. It's more focused on maybe like the girlfriend stuff. There's more scenes with that. But that is like a nice short encapsulation where they go shopping for like the flashy Elvis-like robe, and then immediately it cuts to him getting beat up in the ring, and it made
knocked out in 23 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not like he put up a good fight. Like just immediately gets knocked out. And it made me think, I don't think John Huston would be a fan of modern sports culture and all these the fashion walkways before the games. Gotta come in with your best outfit. What you said is smarter. They're kind of like making him like the new Elvis, hijacking those ideas, but I just couldn't help but think it's like, that's why it's all flash and no substance. You know what I mean? You got to focus on the fundamentals there.
I mean, that third act is centered around a fight, Stacy Keach's big comeback fight against the Mexican fighter Lucero, who's a little older than him even. And, we see Lucero piss blood before the fight and realize that he is dying and decides to go on. You get a medical check with both fighters. They say he's good to go. Both say that they're good to go. And you realize that this guy has a death wish, essentially, and is likely a vision of a Stacy Keach's character's future, or at least one path he could go down, And I love the attention to detail that Huston gives this fighter, because so many other films would just treat him as another character for the main guy to beat up, And Stacy Keach does beat the shit out of him, but he has no celebration whatsoever. Like, his face is just dead, and you have to have his coach and trainer like telling him over and over, like, you won, like, aren't you excited, And that post-fight scene is one of the best encapsulations of the whole movie, where they're just like in what looks like a high school hallway, almost just like a total dingy hallway with the lights off and the coach paying people out. And it's just like super unglamorous and no one's making much money. And then after they leave the frame, the camera just lingers there. And then you see Lucero, who just got the life beat out of him, but is still somehow alive, just walk out slowly in the darkness after. And that patience by Huston there to let the guy who lost the fight, get the final moment of that scene is so indicative of this whole movie's MO about loserdom, like this is just, I can't say it enough. It's like one of the ultimate down and out movies. I really love how it portrays that life. And ending with the two characters back together, Stacy Keach fully washed out, just like drunk out of his mind, drinking coffee. And Jeff Bridges just like giving him the glad hand, like, yeah, sure, I'll stay and talk to you for a little bit. Like, does not want to be hanging out with this old drunk guy. Beautiful and poetic, and they don't have to say anything to each other. They can just look forward, and it's the perfect ending. I'm going 4.5 bullets on Fat City. What about you, Malcolm?
I'm gonna go 4 bullets. I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, we were talking about like that encounter between Keach and Bridges at the end. Like, I love at the beginning where it seems like they weren't planning on seeing each other. It's a random encounter, and like Bridges like kind of sees him first, and he's trying to get his car to start, to avoid the situation. And there is a lot of movies about like loser lifestyle, down and out lifestyle, stuff like that. But I feel like in this one, you really get a feel, and it feels just realistic, like why these people are caught up in these cycles.
Yeah.
And, has a lot of empathy for like kind of side characters, like you said, like, whether it's the guy that Keach fights that, has the bloody piss. And like, I love the introduction we get to that fighter. It feels very much like, scenes we've seen with Keach in like whatever room he was in. And also, Oma's boyfriend, was it like Elijah, or I don't know, we can't play the name guessing game now. Yeah. But the other barfly that the Stacy Keach character kind of dates in the middle of the movie, Oma, she kind of only really agrees to it because her boyfriend is in jail for the time being. And I love that encounter at the end after Keach, won the fight, and he has his argument with the boxing coach, which is a great scene too, about payment. And it's just very, it's just, he's not getting as much as, he would have liked, but, the coach has to, cash in on those advancements. And it's, like with the coach too, it's like, he's not like some money grubbing guy who fucked him over. It's like, it's just realistic. He's like, I gotta give you your cut, but I gotta, not go broke myself here too. And with Keach coming back after the fight to Oma's place after they've kind of broken up, and her boyfriend's back from jail, like, and he gets him the box of shirts he left, and like, he's kind of like sympathetic to him. He's like, like, oh, I like a good fight. I might come watch you box sometime. And there's just like a mutual agreement of sadness where, we're not going to get into some lovers triangle quarrel here. Like everyone here is more than happy to, kind of just give up and go back to the sad cycles of their lives. And, but also trying to maintain their pride within these kind of cycles, right? Because like the boyfriend's like, oh yeah, I'm wearing one of your shirts right now. Let me take it off and give it to you, and he has like, the nonsense excuse being like, I do have shirts. Like, don't think I don't have any shirts. Just it was laundry day and I needed to borrow a shirt.
Such a strange moment.
And, it's funny that we mentioned the shirts at the beginning because like that is one of my favorite moments, and like there's a lot of attention given to those shirts. Like I love when you get a shot of the closet and there's just a bunch of like wadded up t-shirts in there. Like that does not practicing proper laundry regiments there. Yeah. And so yeah, it just feels very real to life, and like I feel like authenticity is something that this movie kind of helps fuel it, and like it really just taps into that. And I went to Stockton once.
Okay.
I've visited Stockton because I have family who live in Turlock, which is like an half hour away from there. I'm not quite sure. And I went to a record swap there, and I bought a Hot Boys single.
Wow.
And it wasn't a song I was familiar with. Wasn't it's cool, but it's in the collection. So I do have some Stockton experience, just to up my Stockton credibility here.
I mean, the biggest Stockton rep there is, home of.
There's like a minor league baseball team there. What is it?
That's part of it, sure.
What is it?
There's also a G League team, the Stockton Kings.
Oh, yeah, the Stockton
That's not what
Kings.
I was going to say, though.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Pavement is from Stockton.
Oh, really? I didn't quite know that.
Pavement.
Okay.
Old Stephen Malkmus and co.
I think I did hear that once now that you've brought that up. That's interesting.
In that song where he says,
yeah. I mean, also just speaking on the Northern California-ness of this movie, all like the field picking scenes, that feels very true. That's a huge industry over there. My family that lives up in Turlock, they're subject to a lot of pro nut propaganda from the California Almond Board, because there's been some slanderous rumors on the amount of water it takes to grow almonds. They're saying that it takes 1 gallon of water to grow a single almond.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's true, but I think most nuts take that much water.
Yeah.
Is what someone told. I talked to someone who used to work for the California Almond Board, and they told me it's like it's fucked up how they did almonds.
It's a heated topic of discussion along the 5 North billboards that are all in conversation with each other. Billboards along the 5 North that say things like, "Where did all the water go?" Or "If it really takes this much water, blah blah blah."
No, one of my favorites is growing food really a waste of water? Which is like, all right, you got me there. But I do love farmers expressing themselves through these like self-made billboards. Like it is how could you not like that? Just creativity. You got to encourage creativity wherever it pops up.
JT, any final thoughts on this one and a rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 4 bullets on this as well. I mean, more or less just echoing same thoughts where, I don't know. There's no, like, not to say, obviously, I love melodrama, but I love how not melodramatic and just true to life, true to the misery of life it is. Like, I think that in particular makes the final scene just so powerful. And I mean, like, different points, I think they're just like really the relationship that Keach has with Oma. And I mean, both men that see her, it just sort of feels like they need company. Like, they don't, like, not even like company to like tell like their like intense feelings or anything like that, because they're not telling anyone that. They're like everything. There's no reveal of anything remotely like that, except that end where it's just like looking at like people around you and just realizing like, I don't know, it's empty and scary, and just like, even if you're like, oh, state of talk where there's going to be no conversation, just like having someone familiar like physically beside you is just like comforting alone. And I mean, that's basically the crux of like what appears to be both men's relationships with Oma, where it's just like, yeah, she's fucked up and drunk, but like she's here, she's just hanging out with you. And that's like I mean, for some people, like that is why they propagate or just continue like these miserable relationships, because it's just like, okay, well, would you rather be alone? Because like in Keach's case, like he will probably be alone after he leaves the restaurant, after he finishes his cup of coffee. And yeah, I don't know. It's very miserable and very lonely. But Huston gives our losers a lot of dignity in their portrayal, and I really, really like that.
You said it well, you know? She's there. And she's a cheap date. She just likes a little bit of sherry, like Frasier, you know? Yeah. Probably a different type of sherry than Frasier likes, I would have to guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of, also, yeah, I mean, anytime I see Coach from Cheers, see him on screen, all I can think of is, this guy knew Frasier? He was doing this stuff? It's crazy.
Well, if you think about it, like Stockton, not so far away from wine country, you know what I mean? So maybe it's kind of like, you know, like in Maryland,
runoff sherry.
In like Maryland, like crabs are way cheaper than they would be in other places. Like, what if like in Stockton, like you could just get the highest quality sherry for, I don't, I that's, you know, I don't think that's really part of the movie necessarily, but I guess I'm just kind of going off, thinking about local economies and
local economies.
She's great. I feel like I didn't quite say that sentence, but yeah, Susan Tyrrell is just amazing.
Yeah, Susan Tyrrell as Oma is incredible in this movie. She, I mean, I compared her earlier to Shirley MacLaine in Some Came Running, and a compliment for an actress doesn't get too much higher than that.
Yeah,
so, and I meant it. I don't mean a lot of the things I say on this podcast.
You're not just bullshitting like you usually do. We don't even like half of these fucking movies.
I don't even like movies.
Oh yeah, I'm into TV.
I'm into crypto.
I'm into crypto.
All right, we'll be right back on Extended Clip.
Is it just sound? It's not video, just to check.
It's just sound. It is just
okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would have showered if I was doing a video.
Yeah.
I've been caught out a few times and I'm like, oh shit.
No, I pretty much never do video. Like I've been a big podcast listener for, you know, ever since the medium started pretty much, and it becoming a video thing is really like distressing to me because
I agree.
Agreed.
I've always really loved it as an audio medium, and you know, I like just I don't know. There's something of a demystification of like seeing people actually record these things, whereas in the 2010s, I didn't know what anyone looked like who I listened to podcasts of, you know. Now I kind of hate that it's like implied that you're gonna have to do some staring into the webcam while doing the podcast. Like I wouldn't have gotten into it if I knew that it was going to be like a webcam thing, you know?
Yeah.
And who wants to watch a Zoom recording anyway?
Yeah, no, that became really popular, especially during COVID. Everyone, you know, switched to doing remote recordings, and they were like, oh, and you can watch the Zoom that we recorded it in too. And I'm like, why would I want to watch that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Just the mystery of audio too. It just leads to more imagination. Like for my work, I used to have a lot more phone calls, and so much has turned into Zoom.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember like this one guy I was working with at the time, when I finally met him in person, he was like, I thought you had like a mohawk. And I was like, I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah, no, the one that I got once meeting someone after starting doing a podcast for a while and not having like posted any like pictures of myself or anything online for a long time because I used to be a very private person in that regard. You met me and and this was like 8 years ago, and he was like, I thought you were like 50, you know? All right.
That's quite funny in relation to the film, actually. Like, one of our favorite reviews was on Letterboxd, and
Yeah.
it was a user who wrote, I also hate to be perceived, so I get it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the film that you referenced just now is what we're here to talk about. I have Kyle Greenberg and Anne Maguire here on the line to talk about their new short film, Hi, You Are Currently Being Recorded. This is your guys' own production as well under Stupid Co Biz. And that's what I wanted to ask about first, because I know, Kyle, you do work with Utopia and Circle Collective. These are distributors that I've been in contact with over the last couple of years for the sake of the podcast. Did you always have a goal to start your own production outfit, or did you eventually have a realization that you wanted to do something beyond your day job?
Well, I've always made stuff. So, when Anna and I started working together, it kind of just happened. Yeah, it just all kind of blossomed very organically. And, I think the idea of just being able to hub our creative work under a kind of unified label made sense.
Yeah, I mean, because it's kind of our project together. Kyle has obviously his work life, and I have my own work life. And then when we met, we wanted to start making projects together. Kyle's always drawn. He's he's an artist in his own right. He's made zines. He's done so much wonderful work in that space. And then obviously as a distributor, and then we both sort of felt like we had something to say together. We really had such a creative meeting as well as a romantic one. And so we decided to make our first short, Hi, You Are Currently Being Recorded, because we went for a walk in LA. I was visiting, and we went for a walk in Woodland Hills, and we're just trying to find a nature trail, just trying to get away from our computer-based work, for a little bit. And we encountered instead these automated voices that said, Hi, you are currently being recorded. And we may or may not have smoked a joint before, and it freaked us out. And so we kind of hot-tailed it out of there, got back, and we were like, that was really spooky. What a strange non-human encounter. And like in the film, there was no one else around. It was just us, and it felt very surreal and very dystopian.
Yeah.
And I guess, we sort of thought,
Yeah, well, I'm from New York originally, and everybody walks around. So, in places in LA,
and I'm from London and from Toronto, so
no one ever walks in LA, and then you end up in a ghost town of a nice neighborhood, and then realize that you're just being recorded by a bunch of different houses. So yeah, basically we were like, we thought it would be fun, even just kind of as an exercise. We were like, oh, we just sort of envisioned it as a short, and the next day we may or may not have smoked another joint at the beach, and Anna basically just
we started going back and forth.
Wrote down the whole script as we were sitting there,
wrote it on our notes,
getting sunburnt. And so yeah, like Stupid Co is just the extension of us having fun, and being willing to like get a little dumb with it. It's not intended to be a distribution company. It's meant to reflect our own creative projects.
And then we sort of work with different friends. I mean, Christina and Matty, who came on board. Matty shot the film, and Christina helped us produce it. they're just our pals, and they came and we sort of made a film for them. I mean, they brought on other people, we brought on some other people, and it's really just been a creative outlet. It's just a space to have fun. And then we decided to make a hat because Kyle drew this really great logo for Stupid, and we thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to make a hat that says Stupid on it? And so
yeah. So
giving hats away, and
let us know if you want a stupid hat.
Oh, absolutely.
The original.
Absolutely. We could definitely do a little Stupid Co. extended clip merch swap. That would be lovely.
Yeah, so it's really just a space to have more fun. I mean, I've been making films and acting for years. I mean, since I was 7.
Yeah.
My first ever film was Saving Private Ryan. And I've been working on various projects and other people's projects. I'm working on my first feature at the moment, my solo first feature, and we just wanted to experiment because I think both of us were getting a little bit bored by the sort of status quo of what we felt we were supposed to do as sort of quote unquote filmmakers. And yeah, so Stupid Co is sort of keep it simple, stupid, and like a good reminder to both of us to just mess around, have more fun, be more creative, and hopefully that can extend to others too.
I mean, not to get too personal, but what came first between you guys, a romantic partnership or a creative one?
I mean, they're both, how can you tell one from the other?
Yeah.
No, I feel like it's true. They were quite connected.
Yeah, I think since there were a lot of creative ideas immediately kind of flowing.
We're always making things together, which is really nice. Meals and films and hats and books, and it's just an extension.
Yeah,
it's really nice. We're really lucky.
Anna, you mentioned earlier your first film being Saving Private Ryan. So, you start as a child actor. Was there like a conscious coming of age type moment where you realized you wanted to work behind the camera as well as in front of it, or is something that developed slowly or was always there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always wanted to do lots and lots of things. I've always been a jack of all trades and a master of none. But I guess when I left university and I started sort of acting in things and auditioning for things sort of in a more professional manner, I wasn't just doing it as a kid anymore. And I just felt like something was lacking. I felt unhappy in the constant sort of seeking for that kind of like pick me approval, that feeling. And so I started working for a photographer because I really wanted to learn about image making because I'd studied literature and I'd done a lot of performance, and I guess I really wanted to learn the image side of it all, and that really led me to become really, really interested in photography and into filming things myself and shooting on film and shooting all different mediums. And I guess I just found I love working on other people's projects and I love acting in things, and I love it when it isn't my baby in the same way. I can come and I can collaborate and I can give part of myself. But it's really great to have both outlets, and then now on top of everything that we've been sort of building our own creative collaboration, I feel like there's lots of different voices to be explored, and I think actually the more and more it goes, the more and more
slowly working on a book together. So we made a zine and a screening series called Can Dogs, where we screen different dog films and we pair it in a dog friendly setting with a limited edition zine
that Kyle drew
called Can Dogs. So that screening series sort of sparked one level of like printed collaboration and screening series. We hosted a one-day festival last October in Vancouver called Off Biff with our friend and Anna's cousin Aaron Shearing, who made an amazing film called King Baby, which is
with Kit Redstone.
It's known as the movie that Europe loves and North America won't seem to embrace. But yeah, just
Dogs were supporting our friend Ben Petrie's film The Heirloom. We're just kind of wanting to support people and support
great things about The Heirloom. My friend filmmaker Adrian Anderson is a big Ben Petrie Heirloom fan. He's been
We met Adrian at Can Dogs New York.
Yeah, Adrian's a close friend of the podcast.
You got to get Ben on.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was kind of just bad timing where I couldn't make the screening of the heirloom, and I'm not afraid to say Adrian gave me a lot of shit for not going. But you know what? That's the life of the movie podcaster. Once in a while you have one too many screenings on your docket.
You're based in New York?
No, I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh shit. Okay.
Well, next Can Dog
Yeah,
LA.
Can Dogs LA next time.
Yeah, no, that was just last week, right? That you guys did your LA Can Dog. Yeah, that was at the Lumiere Music Hall. Great, great, great Los Angeles venue. One of the only great new movie cinemas going in LA
Really?
right now.
Yeah. I forget about this, and I work with them a lot, on the distribution side, but it's like all the people who I guess were working at the old Lemley ended up taking it on. So, it's really kind of this like community hub, and they play, all independent films for the most part.
And really radical programming. I'm super inspired to be part of.
They're doing great stuff there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you said it was Woodland Hills where you shot this short film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I have also shot a couple short films in Woodland Hills in my college days. Well, I'm from the San Fernando Valley. That's where I grew up. So a lot of these locales looked very familiar to me, and it was like a very familiar feeling of being stoned and scared in the San Fernando Valley, I guess.
Unheimlich, very uncanny environment, especially coming from London, just feeling so out of sorts in this space where sort of people are sort of peeking through windows and no one's around. It feels like it's almost not wealthy enough to have people standing there and gates, but too wealthy for them to not have cameras. It's a strange hinterland of
in this neighborhood adjacent to Calabasas, which is where all of the very wealthy people, and celebrities live, and those are like these gated communities. So now you're still around really nice homes, but they've substituted the private, upfront security for these private video cameras. And
then there's just this strange pervasive sense of fear and mistrust that sort of engenders, and this sort of strange, it just kind of adds to this.
Well, there's something that didn't make it into the film, which is we were going around this neighborhood filming this short film, and there was one location that we kept passing that was under construction, and they still had like 2 of these Ring cameras on the house, and it seemed it was one of the most vocal cameras on the block, that every time it was so sensitive, every time you walk by, hi, you are currently being recorded, hi, you are currently being recorded. So our sound designer, of course, he was amped. He was like, he kept walking by to get as many recordings as he could. We move on to our next location, and 15 minutes later, some guy comes speeding down the block, like guns blazing.
Figuratively.
Yeah. And he just like, he just like charges up. He parks his car. He like walks out very,
ready for a fight.
Authoritatively.
What are you guys doing here?
And he was like, what the hell are you guys doing? I caught you on our security.
We're like, oh, we're just chilling. We're just hanging out with some friends making something. He was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, he came and watched and hung out. It was fine. But I mean, I think that's the thing, is like this kind of
there's just such distrust out there, and rightfully so, in some respects. The two, right? It's A and B.
Everything exists on 2 spheres. It's of course people are afraid. Our friends got broken into, and they had
a couple of weeks after we filmed, our friends got broken into, and the only reason we knew is because they had their own security camera. So we went with them, and we raced back to the house to make sure
they had a dog,
and everything was okay. But it's this interesting.
There's no right or wrong, I guess. Well, maybe there is. Maybe there is a right or wrong. I'm not sure. I guess that's sort of part of the sort of endless loop of it all, which I guess maybe sort of begins to start to explain our how we're putting it out into the world, because I think part of what I find interesting about making cinema is not being didactic about it, is sort of going like, oh, this is something I'm experiencing. Are you experiencing it too? Are you experiencing it this way, in a different way, and in a completely new ulterior thing I've never even thought of? And I guess that's sort of part of it, is that it is kind of it doesn't stop. It's this endless loop of, well, this new thing's come out into the world. Now we live with it. How do we feel about it? What does it do? It's kind of an endlessly creative thing, albeit something that is also anxiety inducing and paranoid, is that even a word? Paranoia inducing. Now it is. And then the different uses of these kinds of cameras. Like nowadays, people are using them to spy on workers or cleaners, and like, what are the ethics of that? It's like, if we're always being
obsessing just over. Yeah, maybe they're just obsessing over like their dogs in their house.
Totally.
Animals, but it's the kind of instant gratification sort of culture that we are in as well, I guess, as a result of social and media at large. And it's
so there's no kind of right answer, and we're kind of exploring it and sort of dipping our toe into it, and we'll be interested to hear. We've already heard some interesting perspectives on it, and some people like it, some people don't like it, some people get it, some people don't get it. That's part of the course. But
this one person left this other wild Letterboxd review where they just in the middle they started reviewing it or summarizing the plot, and then suddenly it just transcended into this personal anecdote about how they got lost in Tokyo, and it took them hours for their friend to find them on the street. And then separately, another story about how
they might
back at home, somebody accused them of trying to steal somebody's chihuahua. So
actually, on some level, we're like, well, part of Stupid Co and part of what we're trying to do, and we're doing a few other things in this space. I do a lot of film education work as well, is like encouraging more making of things and creativity and creating things. So in a way, we're like, oh, these amazing stories and these amazing responses and reviews. We really love Letterboxd in that respect. So we're like, okay, it's this other space for creativity and for kind of creating a response to something. And I guess the endless mirrors that kind of then allows for, of people kind of reflecting back. So something in all that, something there.
I think there's definitely something there. You mentioned your guys' love of Letterboxd. Is there ever like a feeling that you don't want to be kind of too responsive to that, like reading criticism of your own films? Do you try to take that into consideration for what you do in the future, or do you try to just kind of stay focused on what you're doing? Is there kind of a fine line there?
I mean, obviously, if like loads of people said something was like profoundly offensive, I would take that into account. It's like, that if you weren't like aware of what you were doing, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But I think, it's interesting to hear people's responses, but it's just interesting. It's like, I don't know, I've been dealing with reviews since I was a young human, and I did for a while find it really, really like disturbing and upsetting. And now more and more, I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Like you can't please everyone, and it can't be for everyone. And that's, you get what you get, right? So
they say never read the reviews, but the more I talk to people, the more I realize that everyone reads every review, kind of. There's very few people who actually don't read the reviews, and it becomes like a lot more difficult with the internet and the immediacy of all of that. So I applaud people who are able to see all of that feedback and not let it get to them,
Oh, you know what? I think it's
probably
a never-ending loop. I think sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And it's but you just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Probably the filmmakers who read the reviews more than anybody, because I wonder how many, just kind of quote unquote average Joes out there are ever reading any film reviews, if I'm going to be brutally honest.
It's all film people just like feeding back into
it's another endless loop of
No, absolutely. I mean, it's so degrading to call people regular or whatever, but regular people who don't have the disease of cinephilia,
Exactly. It's
they
actually,
don't read
I would say it's a
criticism.
compliment. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Like someone like, let's say my dad, my dad loves movies. He watches a lot of movies. He's probably never read a review of a
He
movie.
makes up his own mind.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most people do.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask about is this is, I guess you could call it a stoner film, and it
Yeah.
made me think about how alcohol has been a cinematic character writing tool since the beginning of cinema. Was there like anything conscious about making a film about like something that is now totally legal and everywhere and branded in a corporate way as it is now, or would this just have been the same movie if you made it while weed was totally illegal and underground?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think we definitely did want it to be a stoner film. I think that was part of it. We wanted my character to be stoned and alone in this place, partly because it's resonant. I think I really like smoking weed. I really like smoking weed. There you go.
Who doesn't?
But
It's a nice thing.
It-
Sometimes it can go too far.
but sometimes like it can just like everyone in this world nowadays struggled with anxiety, and sometimes it'll just hit at a certain moment, and that sort of it's like a tinderbox that explodes with weed and your own imagination and something and
My mom always used to say everything in moderation.
your
Yeah.
mother's a wise woman.
So
Yeah, it's like the paranoia of that when it was illegal versus the
Yeah.
paranoia of it now is obviously is different, and obviously there's a long and really
well, but I think the
sort of
legal
like a history with weed and incarceration and all of those things, and so of course it kind of comes into play inevitably that like it's a bit more sort of jolly nowadays, but actually it has a long history of not having that. And I think actually playing that and showing it and I guess, normalizing these things, and so that we can sort of change the way it's perceived, in the sense of it just being something that you can do, like alcohol, like you're saying, like alcohol has long been something that has been used in cinema, in literature. But then it also raises the question as to what is allowed, what is illegal, what is hidden, what is perceived, what is recorded, why are you hiding, all these things.
As laws are potentially or are changing, I mean, like it's legal to smoke a joint on the street in Woodland Hills for now. I went to a movie in Burbank, I want to say, and one of my friends informed me that it's illegal to smoke in Burbank.
Yeah,
Is that
you can't even smoke cigarettes in Burbank. Yeah, it's yeah.
I mean,
I don't really follow that rule, but it is true. And also, like Burbank and Glendale, there's also no weed dispensaries. Like if you live there, you have to drive past city limits to get your weed. As someone who lived and went to the movies in Burbank for a couple years, had to find out.
Yeah. I was informed of where the good spots were in Burbank, basically. But it's just, I think the film is obviously rooted in the present and that, it's legal in California in many places. You can walk around the street, but, how do you don't always know where the line between public and private begins. And what that might mean for what you're doing.
And what that might mean in terms of what your rights are and what that might mean so I think it's and it's getting more and more disturbing, that question in the world, not just in the US.
As we wrap up here, one last thing moving forward. Anna, what can you tell us about your forthcoming feature, External Neighbors?
Well, it's my first solo feature, and I received the Talent to Watch telefilm grant, that the same grant that Ben received actually for the Heirloom. And so my producing partner Erin Carter and I are just beginning to put it all together. And yeah, it's a kind of wild alien road movie, a cosmic road trip, I'm calling it, through different layers of consciousness and existence. And it's a small budget, but we have a very strong and supportive team that is sort of ever growing, and we're really excited to go into production on it this year. All things going well, touch wood, fingers crossed.
Great. I can't wait. All right. So everyone go check out How You Are Currently Being Recorded, and I will have the link to that loop in the episode description. And Kyle, Anna, anything else you want to promote to the listeners out there while you're on the show?
Thank you so much again for having us on. And yeah, anybody listening, you can find us on Instagram at StupidCoBiz. Hit us up if you guys have ever made any dog movies. Or if you want to see a dog friendly screening in your town,
or if you want a stupid hat.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast, and we will be right back on Extended Clip.
I feel like in football, sometimes like the East Coast gets a little shafted.
Oh, yeah.
Like Monday Night Football starting at like 8 on the East Coast is kind of, that seems harsh.
Yeah.
But
I just like West Coast sports time.
True. But JT did make a good case for the benefits of the East Coast. I guess it really depends on when you're trying to watch this stuff. If you're maybe a little more nocturnal, you know what I mean? Or like the nighttime's just the only time you got to watch that stuff. It is like, that is cool. Like on the East Coast, you're like, it's baseball till midnight, you know?
Yeah, till 1.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not a night person.
Yeah.
You know, like I like that I can watch stuff early in the morning. Like if the Dodgers are on the East Coast playing like a 10 a.m. fucking day game.
Like,
that's sick. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. I remember one time being at school when I TA'd in the nurse's office in middle school, and like the Dodgers were playing Pittsburgh at like 10 a.m. And in like third period, I was able to watch like an hour of the Dodger game. It was amazing. Like I was in heaven that day.
It's my favorite day of school ever. Yeah,
literally. I think it might be just like an average 2007 Dodger game. Andre Ethier had an RBI. I remember specifically.
A's legend, Andre Ethier, you know?
Dodger legend.
True, but that A's
got him from the A's.
The A's farm system
Bradley.
Really molded him. I feel
such an that was like the opposite of Moneyball. Why would they trade Milton Bradley for Andre Ethier? Or the opposite, rather. Why would you give up like your best prospect in Ethier for Milton Bradley?
They fucking sucked back then too.
Yeah,
at
that was
point.
pre-Moneyball.
So. No, that was post, right? Wasn't it like in the late 2000s?
They got Ethier in like 05, 06. He was a rookie in 07.
Like mid 2000s?
Yeah, like his actual rookie season was 07.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't really like, I was a little young to like know the details.
You were 7.
Yeah, so I can't quite remember.
See, I'm old. That's when I watched the most baseball was 2007 when Clayton Kershaw was like a rookie. That was when I would watch them. I watched like close to all 162 Dodger games that year. Like I was a fucking freak back then.
I mean, I like before I was obsessed with movie, like from like 10 to 13 or whatever. Like, yeah, I was trying to watch like 162 baseball games.
Yeah.
Like I had I'm looking up Mark Ellis stats, you know, and it is funny because I feel like the time I was most into it, like the A's fucking sucked. Like there wasn't maybe one good year, but it's just like player, you know, no offense to the but like no one even that memorable, you know. Jack Cust, I just remembered him because he was like a fat DH who just like was too fat to even like dream of playing in the outfield, but like he went like 230 with like 30 home runs. I'm like, this is like
that guy rolls.
This is what we need right now, you know. Just if you had Matt Stairs play 162.
Tell me about it. I remember Matt Stairs later in his career knocking the Dodgers out of the playoffs once.
I mean, elite pinch hitter.
Literally the pinch hit home run that ruined my life for a year. Back when that's why like I was failed so many times by the Dodgers that once they won a title, I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm used to just hating them for losing in the playoffs. Like, it didn't even work.
It's so soured, you know. It's like well, now you have to denounce them after their visit to the White House.
Yeah. That is crazy. Like, I would have thought maybe Dave Roberts and the crew skips, but
I guess not.
I guess not. Shohei doesn't know any better. He don't have internet.
The clips were great where like Trump couldn't even
Trump telling Shohei Ohtani to take a picture with the Constitution is one of the funniest things ever. You're such a great baseball player. Go take a picture with the Constitution.
Well, and he was just like trying to like in his speech, he was basically just like trying to describe baseball and just was kind of failing. Like, you know, they had a lot of guys and you ran out of some guys. It was like
That.
I'm like,
Yeah,
this is
sick.
funny.
Yeah. What's up, dude?
All I know is that you know, my Warriors, even though it's a different sport, I think that, you know,
I mean, the NBA is
yeah.
the woke league.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
the NBA, they're skipping. Wait, did the Eagles skip the White House though?
I think they
did
right?
the first time Trump was president when they won the Super Bowl the first time. I think they haven't had a visit to the White House yet. There's a weird thing where I think Trump is having the Chiefs come from when
I
they
did see
won
that. Yeah.
during the pandemic.
That's
because they
hilarious.
didn't get to their chance to be special guys and go to the White House.
That's amazing. Oh my God, what a fucking idiot.
But I think now, I mean, I'm pretty certain I saw something where it was just like the Eagles will go, and it's just like, I don't fucking care. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I probably want to meet the president too. That's cool.
Yeah.
I remember
guess being in the
yeah,
White
fuck
House, I don't fucking give a shit.
I don't know if they got rid of this animation once Golden State skipped, but I remember in older 2K games in franchise mode, when you won a title, it showed you going to the White House and meeting Obama.
Yeah.
Like my franchise mode full of just like weirdo created players and guys that I imported from historical drafts hanging out with Obama in 2K animation was always very pleasing to me. Like that was always very fun. Always like 5 guys, like white dreadlocks guys, you know, like
7-foot white dreadlock guys.
yeah. I made Queequeg from Moby Dick.
Oh, nice. Legends only.
Yeah. He was like 7'8".
That'd be great if they give you an option to like accept or decline, and then there's like a fallout from that. Like, they should really flesh out the off-season stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you can go to the strip club with a gun, go Ja Morant style if you want. Like, you could really, like, I remember, you know, Nate of Ethos fame once described.
This is a podcast.
Yeah.
Nate of A Closer Look fame.
True. Yeah. We talk about movies, but podcasts are still number one.
Yeah.
I remember him describing a video game where like you could just be an umpire, you know what I mean, and call balls and strikes, which I think would be so awesome. I would want to play that game. I mean, that's just worth mentioning alone. But I think to kind of piggyback off that idea, like we need the off-season game where the season ends and you get to go home to like a mansion or whatever, or get up to debauchery, whatever you choose. You know, really. You know, with the internet, we know more details now, so everyone's more obsessed with the off season, you know, the actions of these people, you know, after the game's over.
Just
so
finding
I think
you're
we're ready.
getting traded while you're on the beach with your family. That's something, but it never impacts anything in the game because you're not playing.
It's like decide to tell now or wait till in car drive home back from beach to tell about alert of trade, you know.
I remember NFL 2K back before Madden bought the exclusive rights. The last one was 05 and had Terrell Owens on the cover and was like, you know, sports video game nerds really wax poetic about that one being like the best football game ever. It had a feature called My Crib,
Nice.
like with, you know, my player, my career, etc. And it was just like your profile. So across all the game modes, like you yourself as a gamer had like a mansion that was like full of like football trophies and stuff like that, but like you could customize it a lot, like, and you could just kind of hang out walking around your crib. And I feel like that's what the off-season mode would be like. We need to get more into that. We need to do like, honestly, there should be, because I know there was a video game where you make a movie. It was like a PC game.
Interesting.
There should be one that's like a simulator for like like a sports simulator, but for the film industry, where like, you know, you're running a studio and, you know, signing players, you know, basically combining the sports simulator franchise mode with movie making.
Howard
somehow.
Hughes simulator.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I feel like to really get the most out of that game, like you got to bring it back to classic Hollywood where everything was more contract based, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, oh, I just signed John Huston to 7 films, you know what I mean? And it's kind of, I'm doing it more for the first 5, you know, the last 2, you know, we could take a hit on those, you know, you get really become like a GM, you know?
I think there's a way to do this. I think if any of our listeners are like tabletop role-playing game guys, like especially like role-based ones, you know, like I feel like there's a way to build this out. There's a way for us to enter another dimension, because also like doing like storytelling tabletop game podcasting so much better than watching movies for research, like just like playing make believe.
Should we just play some games?
Yeah,
Is that
doing a
the
Dungeons and Dragon campaign where we're all like John Huston, Charles Chaplin, like that's
Fatty Arbuckle?
That's one to keep up your sleeve. That's good.
Fatty Arbuckle, and so you roll a dice, and if it comes up on like 3 or 6, he gets found guilty.
Yeah, we need Paramount to reach out for us. Hasbro or whatever.
I mean, it could be the tie-in for that new Apple Plus series,
Yeah,
The
The Studio.
Starring friend of the pod, Owen Klein.
He's in it?
He is in it.
Nice.
I think he plays like a hotshot director also.
Really?
I think.
I could see him being
He might
good
be
at
an
that.
actor, though. He might be an actor. But he is a hotshot director, so who knows?
I was kind of hoping that, you know, that sounds good, but I was kind of hoping that it was like him and Dice, kind of like in those Instagram videos they do.
God,
and it's like,
so good.
You're just walking by them in the studio and they're having their like back and forth, you know what I mean? And you're
By
Seth
the way-
Rogen, you're like, those guys, I don't know what they're up to, you know?
If anyone out there has not seen friend of the podcast Owen Klein's collaborations with the Dice Man, go to Andrew Dice Clay's Instagram. There are quite a few videos where Owen has now become this character of like basically the Jeff Bridges to his Stacy Keach in Fat City.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny.
And like it's cool, you know. A lot of old guys, they don't like, you know, they don't want to riff with a young guy. I feel like, but Dice he's more than willing. It's a great odd couple you got going there.
And if Entourage taught me anything, it's that Dice Man is oddly accessible and will basically do anything. So maybe we get him on the pod sometime.
Yeah, we could do a little Ford Fairlane action.
Yeah, I think Rob would insist on being on the episode, which is okay.
yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that. You know,
I mean, it would be kind of a major betrayal if
to not have him on. Yeah. But that is our second friend of the podcast who has done some sort of video interaction.
True, he
with
made it
Andrew Dice
onto.
Clay.
I think Dice Clay posted it on his Instagram, like him and Rob's interaction. I believe.
He said, "You want the picture? I wanted to go to the picture." That's Andrew Dice Clay doing a girl voice. That's the underrated part of Dice Man is his girlfriend voice.
Underrated, yeah. His just commentary on women in general, I would say.
Very underrated. Sneaky underrated. Goodbye, everybody. We don't need to do another segment.
No, I think we left it all out there. Yeah.
We left it all out there in the ring today. Quick drink champ style Q&A.
Oh, you know what? Wait, one more thing, because I'll never get to use this. When I was looking up, I was just checking to see if Fat City was on streaming. You know, one of the streaming devices companies that I pay for, and because I think I saw it on Prime once, and I was like, oh, I'll watch, but I think it got taken off. And what I did see was this TV series called Fat Friends. Ooh. And I couldn't help but watch, like, skim through it a little bit. And
looking for
I guess
Fat Joey, Fat Ross, Fat Rachel.
that would be a fucking great idea, to be honest.
They jump in the fountain at the beginning. There's a huge tidal wave, like water splash.
Ross has a fat monkey.
The visual of like the Friends people jumping in the fountain and then they come out fat. Like that's a great visual. That should
They hang out at like a malt shop instead of a coffee shop. They're all just Gunther's surfing up milkshakes all day.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's great, and like that's talk about we've had a lot of business ideas on the podcast recently. Fat remakes should be happening. You know what I mean? America is fatter. Not everyone, I guess, but like just percentage wise, people are fatter. Like we got to start remaking shows with fat people in it. But this show, it was a fat original. It was I mean, I don't need to get into it too much. Like, it's
Sorry,
just
Fat Friends is just so much better than whatever it could be.
It's just like a fat couple. It's just like a fat couple, and they're like go about their day being fat. But the intro music was hilarious, where it's like the purple silhouette scene from Mulholland Drive, where they're dancing around. It kind of has like that aesthetic, but it's like pictures of like cakes and like food, and then it's like them doing like the fat sitcom intros, and it's just like it's just pretty. It was British, I guess. It didn't make it over here to the States, but I might check that out, I guess. I don't know.
So no one told you 300 pounds is what you weigh.
Are you glad I talked about it for a minute so you could wait to cook that up?
Absolutely.
Your life's a joke. Your life's a joke. You're broke. You ate 5 fish fillets. It's like you're always stuck on that second box of Entenmann's.
This is great stuff.
When it hasn't been your day, your month, your week, you drink 37 beers.
You know what?
I'll be fat for you.
We did have a fat remake. It was The Nutty Professor. That was a fat remake. So Eddie Murphy did have the right idea that we did get a fat remake. The Clumps.
It is very funny to say, like, let's take this Jerry Lewis movie. How could we make it more broad? Let's get a fat suit thing going.
Talk about original remakes. I mean, my God. It was like... were there any clumps? I haven't seen the original Nutty Professor. Was there like a family aspect where you went back home and like
but
they're
it's
all
kind
like
of riffing on another Jerry Lewis, The Family Jewels, where he plays like 8 members of I think a family that are protecting some sort of jewels. But yeah, no, I mean, God. And after Fat Friends, Fat Seinfeld. Jerry, I can't get through the door.
and in this scenario, is Newman like, is he skinny
Newman's
to like
skinny, Newman's skinny.
Or what if Newman's like they're like 400 pounds and Newman's like 700 pounds, like he's even fatter.
Newman is tied to his bed.
Gilbert Grape levels obesity. Skinny remakes of fat movies too would be good, just to equality.
And
a
next
skinny
on
remake of The Whale.
Yeah. And after Fat Seinfeld, Skinny King of Queens. It's just Kevin James. He can't even hold the packages that he's delivering. He's just so frail.
He's like emaciated, yeah.
Patton Oswalt is just like recast as Martin Starr.
This sounds like good stuff. It sounds like good stuff.
All right, goodbye everybody, for real now.